The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life, showing the dying world of Vareth Prime. Ambassador L stood at the podium, her hands gripping the edges as she watched the footage of frail, translucent beings huddled in crumbling shelters. Their planet was collapsing, tectonic shifts, atmospheric decay, and a dying star that had begun its final descent into oblivion. "The Vareth have 6 months," announced Council Speaker Jarn, his multiple eyes blinking in mechanical sequence, perhaps less. "The evacuation window closes in 3 weeks." Ella's jaw tightened. She had reviewed the proposals from every major species in the galaxy. The Kryn Collective had deemed the Vareth genetically incompatible with relocation protocols. The Nexari Empire had calculated the resource expenditure as economically unfeasible. Even the usually benevolent Oran Federation had politely declined, citing their ship's inability to accommodate the Vareth's unique atmospheric requirements. One by one, they had all found reasons to turn away. "The Vareth emit low-level radiation," argued the Kryn representative, his exoskeleton clicking with dismissive gestures. "They would contaminate any habitat we provide." "Their immune systems are too fragile," added the Nexari diplomat through her translation device. "They would die within months of relocation anyway. Why waste resources on the inevitable?" Ella felt her face flush with anger. These were the same species that preached unity and cooperation across the stars. Yet when faced with genuine crisis, they retreated behind walls of pragmatism and self-interest. "Humanity volunteers," she said quietly. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien languages, clicks, whistles, electronic pulses. Jarn's manipulator appendages raised for silence. "Ambassador L, humanity is barely a Tier 2 civilization. You lack the infrastructure, the technology, We have enough," L interrupted, her voice steady. "And more importantly, we have the will." 3 weeks later, Adonis stood on the bridge of the UHNS Perseverance, Earth's largest colony ship hastily retrofitted for the mission. Around him, his crew worked with focused intensity: human engineers, doctors, linguists, all volunteers who had dropped everything when the call went out. "Status report," Adonis commanded, his eyes scanning the view screens showing Vareth Prime's orange-tinted atmosphere. "Landing Bay Alpha through Delta ready for intake," reported his first officer. "Medical stations are operational. Dr. Reeves says the radiation shielding adaptations are holding at 97% efficiency." Adonis nodded. The low-level radiation that terrified other species was comparable to what humans encountered near certain industrial sites. Manageable, the Vareth's fragile immune systems required quarantine protocols not unlike those developed during Earth's own pandemic eras. Nothing humanity hadn't faced before. "Take us into orbit. Begin evacuation procedures." The first shuttle that arrived carried 12 Vareth, delicate beings that stood barely 4 feet tall, their skin shimmering like mother of pearl, large oval eyes filled with fear and desperate hope. They moved slowly, weakly, their bodies struggling against the unfamiliar gravity even in the reduced G-zones. Adonis descended to the landing bay personally. Through his translator, he heard their elder speak. You came. After all others refused, you came." "We're here," Adonis replied simply, "and we're not leaving without every single one of you." Over the next 17 days, humanity performed what the galaxy would later call the impossible evacuation. Every ship Earth could spare joined the effort. Military vessels, commercial freighters, even privately owned craft piloted by citizens who mortgaged their futures for fuel costs. El coordinated the logistics from the council station, fighting for every supply requisition, every diplomatic clearance, working 18-hour days until exhaustion became a permanent state. Adonis remained in the thick of it, his perseverance making 4 round trips to Vareth Prime. He watched his crew carry frail Vareth children when they were too weak to walk. He saw human doctors work through the night developing nutritional supplements compatible with Vareth biology. He witnessed engineers jury-rigging environmental systems with spare parts and sheer determination. On the final day, with Vareth Prime's star beginning its catastrophic collapse, the last shuttle lifted off carrying the final 200 Vareth. Adonis stood at the viewport as the planet's surface began to fracture, magma bleeding through continental rifts. "All personnel accounted for," reported his first officer. 42,716 Varath successfully evacuated. Set course for New Haven Colony, Adonis ordered. The human settlement in the Kepler system had volunteered an entire continent for Varath resettlement. 6 months later, Ella and Adonis stood together on New Haven's northern grasslands, watching Varath children, born since the evacuation, playing under a sky that wouldn't kill them. The settlement had become a hybrid community, human prefab structures integrated with Varath organic architecture, both species learning from each other. The elder approached them, moving with renewed strength in the compatible gravity and atmosphere. "Why?" he asked through the translator. "Why did humans risk so much when species far more advanced turned away?" Ella glanced at Adonis, then back at the elder. "Because we remember," she said. "We remember extinction events on our own world. We remember when our own species teetered on the edge. We remember that survival sometimes depends on the kindness of strangers," Adonis added. "And because the measure of a civilization isn't in its technology or power, it's in what it does when someone needs help." The elder's large eyes shimmered with what might have been tears. "The galaxy called us incompatible, unfeasible. They calculated our worth in resources and logistics." "They calculated wrong," Elle said firmly. "Every life has value. Every species deserves a chance." The Galactic Council would later study the Varath incident, as they termed it. They analyzed humanity's irrational resource allocation and inefficient evacuation methods. They published papers on the emotional decision-making that had driven human actions. But they could not deny the results: an entire species saved from extinction, thriving in a new home, contributing to human society with their unique perspectives on biotechnology and sustainable living. And slowly, reluctantly, other species began to reconsider their calculations. Perhaps efficiency wasn't everything. Perhaps there was a variable they had left out of their equations. The humans called it compassion. And in the vast, cold mathematics of the galaxy, humanity had just proven it was the most powerful force of all.